So tonight's going to be a question and answer, and sometimes when we do these, I ask you guys for questions, and I look out at a room full of blank faces, and you're all like, you're prejudging your question. Let me judge your question. You guys just, whatever comes to mind, I mean, try to keep it concise, but it doesn't have to be the deepest, most amazing question. It would be nice if it were deep and amazing, or at least like a little bit amazing. Just think about like what's been bothering you. One of the best phrases I've ever heard was from one of my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teachers, Shihan Dunn, and there's like so much going on in Jiu-Jitsu all the time. You could always do like 1,000 different things. But he says a great place to start is to ask yourself the question, what's bothering me now? So there's something that's like in your face right now bothering you. What is it? And ask about it. Or maybe it's been in your face for years. Great, you should definitely ask about that. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
So you asked me this question before. There are several animal styles in Kung Fu, Southern Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what is your spirit animal and why? Or what is the animal Kung Fu style that you would like to emulate?
So the question is...
You asked me this question before.
Got it. But you're asking me the question.
Yeah.
The question is, what is my spirit animal and what animals or what animal style of Kung Fu would I emulate?
Yes.
I don't know animal style Kung Fu. I've practiced several different styles of martial arts, never animal style. So I can't answer that part of the question. Spirit animal? I don't know the answer to that either. I honestly don't know that much about the concept of having a spirit animal. I've always thought of it like, what's an animal that's got something that you need or that you would like to, exhibit more the qualities of. And there are a lot of wonderful animals out there that I would like to exude the qualities of. I think
I can give you a hint.
No. You're asking me. I mean, you can't answer your own question, Leah. So when I think of exuding the quality of an animal, I like to think of the general being presentness that most animals have. Here's a brilliant thing about animals that is terrible about humans, like just being in the moment. Most animals don't just like pace around all day just worrying about what they're gonna do next, or definitely animals don't think about what happened yesterday or last year. Human beings, we love to just live up in here, and we're like still living out the terrible things that we did in middle school. I know I am, so I know you guys are. It's like we replay these tapes over and over in our head, and animals don't do that. Now, we do a lot of things that animals can't do, so I don't want to be an animal, but I think that we kind of deny this part of our animal nature that is really, really important. It's something that we lose when we, leave infancy. It's just the ability to be totally present and completely absorbed by the moment. And we start to try to plan, and planning is necessary, but you can go too far and just plan all day and never do anything. And we get to learn from our mistakes. That's wonderful. And if you take that too far and you just think about your mistakes all day long, then you're missing life. So I would like to emulate an enlightened human being who does all the great stuff that human beings do, and then also doesn't take it too far. Basically like a dog, but with a brain, a bigger brain. Some of you guys love dogs, so. Other question? Yes, Meryl.
If life is about moving one pile of stones from one side to another figuratively, and it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of reality, then what's the point of any of this?
We're getting right into it, huh? How much time do I have? What's the point of any of it? You heard me talking about moving the rocks. So at an internal retreat that I wasn't at, Sifu Brown just had everybody in the internal retreat just move a pile of rocks. He'd like wake up at some ungodly hour of the morning, which is basically any time before 8 o'clock for me, and move the pile of rocks from this end of the field to this end of the field, and then go about their day. And they just come back and do that, move the rocks back from here to there. And to a lot of people, I think it seemed like an exercise in futility, and they were just like, what's the point? And that's kind of like what we, ask ourselves about life in general. Sometimes that's the experience that we're having. What's the point of any of it? And that question doesn't have to be depressing or sap our energy and strength. It's an invitation to like explore and be kind of in wonder of what is life. What is the point? Because society and our experience kind of teaches us that there is a certain point, or there's an acceptable range of purposes that you get to choose from in life, and that everything outside of that is dumb or silly. But the truth is, in my opinion, there is no set purpose or meaning or point to it. It is just as meaningful as moving the rocks from over here to over there. And when you're moving the rock, you get to decide like why you're doing it. And you get to decide what you get out of moving the rock from here to there. And you guys ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Nobody? This is a great book. It's great. This is two people, smart. There's a hilarious kind of explanation of what human society is, and one of the things that they say is like, so we're all just obsessed with moving little green pieces of paper from one place to the next, and it's all just like we're all just obsessed with making money and spending money and doing all of it. It's like very repetitive and kind of silly. But money, just like anything else that we have in life, is a tool, and you can decide what you do with that. If you're really just living your life to get more money so that you can spend it on stuff, that's really kind of ridiculous. But if you use it as a tool, just like you use anything else that you do, as a tool to grow from, or to get closer to enlightenment, or to inspire other people, or find inspiration for yourself, it's great. There's no answer to your question. The answer is not 42. It's whatever. Whatever you want it to be. So this is something that for a lot of people is kind of like demoralizing. They're like, what do you mean there's no point? There's got to be a point. There is. And you get to decide what it is. And I mean that on the grand scale, and I mean that right now. This rock that you're moving today, when you get in the car and you drive home, you're going from point A to point B, but you can also use that as an opportunity to do something else. And I don't mean necessarily like that you should be texting while you're on the phone, but you could pick up the phone and call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, or you can pop in a book on tape and learn something, or you can use it as an opportunity to breathe and be present. The moving of the rock has the same purpose of the inhale and the exhale. It is just a thing that's happening now, and you get to use it in whatever way you want. I suggest you don't use it to stress out about And like, is this rock that I'm moving big enough? Or am I moving the rocks fast enough? That's the way that we think. At the end of the day, the pile of rocks is going to get from here to there. And it's like the quality of our thoughts and the quality of our actions that really matters. Not even how many rocks we move or how big they were or how fast we do it. Who you got?
Hiya.
Hmm?
She says, my question is about habits. In my experience, bad habits stem from a place that lacks strong will and demand instant gratification. Good habits are about delayed gratification. How do I get my mind to appreciate and seek delayed gratification and do what feels difficult at the moment in order to build lasting healthy habits?
So good versus bad habits, and Kaya's wants us to talk about delayed gratification. So I don't disagree with that. I think that a lot of habit building is about delayed gratification, and delayed gratification is an important skill to have. So I personally have become at least much more of a master of delayed gratification than I used to be. You guys remember what it was like to be a kid. Not much different from it's like being an adult. But they did this experiment where they took kids and put them in a room, and they, what was it, like a plate of cookies, I think, or a marshmallow or something. And the kids who could just sit there and not eat it ended up like doing better in life. They had better grades, or I don't know, whatever. They're just better people in general. So it is a skill, and it's, I guess some people are it's more natural for them. It's, they're born with it, and some people have to, train themselves to be able to just not do what I want to do right now. There are lots of different ways to do this. I think that anytime you're building a habit, it can be kind of like setting goals. We have a tendency to oftentimes look out and see these huge goals and try to kind of bite off a little bit more than we can chew. But if you can break them down into small, manageable chunks, same thing with building a habit. You can eventually, move mountains. And it's like if you can train yourself to not eat the cookie now, but eat it in an hour, that can then, be built upon. And now it's like, well, I can, sit here and meditate instead of just letting my mind do whatever it feels like doing. Or I can put in the time and effort to become great at martial arts rather than just doing what I really want to do right now, which is sit at home, be lazy, and eat cookies, and watch TV or whatever it is that you guys would be doing if you weren't here tonight. So I think that it's a good idea to start small and start with something that is just a little bit uncomfortable and kind of build on that. As far as building habits in general, it's not just about delayed gratification, though. It's not just like I'm not going to do the thing that I want to do. It's really helpful to replace that with something that you do want. So a simple example, you hear it all the time, is like, I want to quit smoking. You don't just stop smoking. You replace it with something. So instead of smoking a cigarette, I chew a piece of gum. And for a lot of people, it's like the social aspect of smoking. So I don't have to just sit there in my desk at work and not get to go out and take the smoke break where I talk to my buddies or whatever it is that you get out of it. You can still choose to get that out of it, but just do something else instead of smoking the cigarette. So there's the part of it where it's kind of like delayed gratification. You take a step back and you decide, I'm not just going to do this thing right now. I'm going to choose to replace it with something else. And this is a necessary part of it, because who was here for our first Kung Fu retreat? I talked all about habits. Really? She's the only one. Well, you know what I'm talking about because you're the one who gave me the book. So what's that called? What was the loop called? It's not the feedback loop, is it? It's the thing. Anyways, there's a whole thing. This is a great book you should read, Kaya. The Power of Habit. I know you were at retreat, so you heard me talk about it. But you have to keep all of the parts of the habit in place and just replace the habit part with something else. So there's the trigger. The trigger for smoking would be like, I've gone so far in my day that I just can't handle working anymore. I need a break. Or I see somebody else walking outside to take the smoke break, and that's the trigger. I'm going to go follow them and do it. Then there's the habit. There's the action that you take. And then there's the reward that you get from it. So if you just try to take the trigger and stop, and then don't have a new action and don't have a reward, that is really tough to do. It's very difficult to break a habit that way. So instead, you can replace the action, replace the thing that you used to do with something else. So replace it with chewing a piece of gum. And the reward that you get out of it, if it was socialization, you've got to still go chew gum around other people who are chewing gum and talk to them at the same time. Or if what you get out of it is like just a second away from the grind, then just go and, sit someplace and breathe and chew gum and, do the rest of it. You still have to allow yourself to get that reward. So try all that stuff and see what happens. Other question? Dina.
Okay, I'm going to try to make this into a question. I was thinking, given the things that happened over the weekend, about the notion in martial arts of being a peaceful warrior, or being able to come from a place of peace and yet still be protective of people who need protection, and a warrior for the things that are right and truth. And I was kind of wondering, and so that made me think of martial arts, of course. And can you talk a little bit about sort of historically or martial arts in terms of that concept? If it makes sense.
I'll try. So the events of this weekend rocked me, like I'm sure rocked a lot of you. I'm going to assume that there are no white supremacists in this audience tonight. But when you think of yourself as being like a warrior, I think that it can elicit different thoughts from different people. But the general connotation you get is like a sense of empowerment, a sense of, doing what at least you believe to be right, not just kind of being sucked into what everybody else in the moment is doing. And for some people, there is a connotation of the martial part of it, the fighting or the violence part of it. Like being a warrior means that I'm also like going to war. And sometimes it might actually entail that. I think that on the physical part, the physical level of it, a lot of people think of themselves like, if I see somebody, being attacked, I'm going to step in and like do something about it. And in some cases that might be very appropriate and it might be the thing to do. I think in many cases it's not. You're going to kind of insert yourself into a bad situation and make it worse. Instead of one person getting hurt, you and the other person get hurt. So let's kind of take the physical part out of it. It very well might be that you decide to put yourself in harm's way in order to defend somebody else, and there are all kinds of great causes and situations where you would do that, and even decide to throw the care for your own bodily safety out the window. But I think that being a martial artist certainly means that there's a sense of like boldness. There's a sense of having integrity for what you believe in, for what you know to be right, and standing up for that in the face of sometimes a world that just seems to have gone absolutely insane. And I think that it's necessary. If you don't do something when there's an opportunity that's presented, you're going to kick yourself for it. And you know, there is oftentimes a way of handling it that doesn't have to turn to violence. As far as historically, I don't know that many. I mean, there are a few great stories of martial artists using non-violence when confronted with violence, but like when I think of what the kind of spirit is that a martial artist should exude, I think of people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and people who like sometimes put themselves in harm's way, but were always they refused to give in. They refused to just accept the status quo. They refused to be afraid. And being a martial artist, it's like, you know, you have this physical part of your practice that we work on all the time, but there is, for everything that we do physical, there is a mental or internal component that's kind of right on the other side of the page that we're really building as a skill at the same time. So we talk about it as the 5 ways of becoming great at martial arts: patience, perseverance, practicing hard, practicing exactly what you want to perform, and meditation. All that stuff can help with this. But you can find lessons in every drill that we do. But if we just take that idea of integrity that I was talking about before, it's like in your technique, there is a set of details that has to be in place. Just take a fist. So you got 5 fingers, all 5 of them have to be in the right place. If you make a fist like this, you don't have a fist. So you got to roll the fingers, keep it tight, you got to put the thumb across, you have to look at your wrist and make sure that it's straight. You have to make sure that when you're landing the punch, it's hitting with the top 2 knuckles, and all of these things have to be in place. One thing that's out, the technique is wrong. There's no integrity there. If you are going through life and you have, you know, a set of principles or beliefs that you want to act upon and live by, I suggest that you should have something like that. It's going to make things a lot less confusing for you. You have no choice but to uphold them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, you know, press them upon other people, but for you, when presented with an opportunity to either shy away from upholding your, you know, your beliefs and being out of integrity with that, or to be able to step up and do what you know is right, there is no choice. There's no choice. There's only being in integrity with yourself as a human being and as a martial artist. It's, you know, exactly how you do that you get to play around with it. And a lot of people jump to violence or jump to judgment or jump to, you know, I've got to prove that what I believe is right and what this person believes is wrong. And, you know, sometimes that's true. Some people are idiots and some people need to get hit. But, you know, what's more important is that you are rock solid in what you know to be true, and, you know, with what your values are, and that you use your practice as an opportunity to live that way. Being mindful, being present is, for me, a part of who I am. If I'm not mindful or present, if I'm not practicing meditation, if I'm not, being the way that I want to be in any moment, no matter what it is that I'm doing, I'm out of integrity with who I am as a person. And it doesn't matter if I'm facing the external forces that are often arrayed against me, or if I am facing the internal forces that are always arrayed against me. There's always an opportunity to practice this. So one of the things that we practice all the time in meditation, really, is when you sit and you are silent, you become confronted. You become confronted with, all of the things that your mind wants you to do that are not meditation. You become confronted with, all of the angst and all of that, stuff that an animal doesn't do, like all of the thinking about what you need to do in the future or the things that happened in the past. You think about all of the things that you've done wrong in your life, and all of that is just a distraction from this moment. And if you are able to, through meditation and through all the things that we practice, if you're able to be totally present in the moment, your real self, the self that is completely in integrity, the self that is not, afraid to do what's right, is always there if you're present. What happens is when we're faced with a difficult situation, we very often retreat to the ego and to our old way of thinking, to fear, anxiety, anger, all of it. And if you can instead train your mind and your spirit and your very being to do exactly what you want to do in any moment, just be present and let the ego melt away, you'll do what's right. That's no small task. It's a tall order. And it's one of the important reasons why we meditate, so that you can do this in all situations. Sometimes we think about meditation as like, well, I'm just going to sit here and right now I'm going to be peaceful and calm. And right now I'm going to discipline my mind. But we have a tendency to let all that go when we go out into the world and into life. But that's not it. As a martial artist, like that is my definition of a martial artist, is taking what you practice into life and allowing the ego to melt away and be your truest self, be your biggest self. And the right thing to do might be different from what it is to anybody else, but it will come forth naturally if you're practicing this state consistently. If you think that when you are faced with a high pressure, scary situation, that you're going to step up and do what's right, you might be right, and you very well might be wrong. So I think it's very helpful to, decide what you would do in a situation, like if somebody's robbing you, or if you're, face to face with a mob of people with flags and clubs. But at the end of the day, if you haven't been practicing going back to the breath and allowing your little self to go and your big self to step up, even in a simple way like in meditation, it's the same thing as like building a great habit. You start small. If you haven't been doing it then, it's not going to happen for you, or you can't be guaranteed that it's going to happen for you when you're really face to face with something terrible. So let's do that right now. We're going to sit and meditate, and we're going to practice being in complete integrity with ourselves and practice the state of mind that we would want to be in when faced with Nazis. Sit comfortably.